All right, we're on to stamping our very first layer. And remember, our first layer, we're not going to carve anything out because we just want that first layer to have that lightest color all over it. So we've got a lot going on right here. We've got our practice paper out. We're gonna need that. We need our ink in front of us. And we know that we're gonna remind ourselves that we always start with the lightest color first. It's easier to add a little more of the dark colors so that you can make it darker. But as you start, if it gets too dark and you have to add more white and more white, it just never happens. So again, I remind myself that I'm going to start over here like I read left to right with my lightest to darkest as I mix. I've got these boards ready to go as soon as I learn how to use my ink appropriately with a good amount. Here's my practice page. In fact, I think I'm going to get a few more practice pages out, and then my card. Now, the card is going to be the last thing I print ever because I want to make sure that I'm doing it perfectly. I want to know that I'm centering it every single time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, hold on a second here. I don't know if you can see that. I am going to center. I should measure, but I am being lazy tonight. I'm going to make sure that this left edge, top, and right edge are all equal, and I will leave the major weight on the bottom. So this is all centered up here, and there's more weight on the bottom. And then I'm just going to kind of move that around until I feel like it's centered. And then what I can do is I'm just going to barely mark the corners of where I want my print to be placed. And that way I can place the first print centered. And again, you may measure if you want. I didn't. And now you can see, there it is. That's what that looks like. And we're ready to go. If you were in class, I would make you put your first and last name on this block with a pen. So I would, of course, put my first and last name. You all should probably do this even if you're at home, because if we do end up coming back to school and you have to bring this with you, your name should be on it. And of course, your period number. Be very careful with this. This is the only one that you get. All right, 2A, 2B, whatever cohort you're in, that's fine. I'm going to get rid of all of my good papers. I'm going to put those aside while I'm mixing. I'm leaving my practice paper with me. If your first layer is white, you may skip this step because you're going to use the white of the paper. So again, if your first layer is white, you may skip this step. However, mine is not white. My first layer is this very light silvery color. So again, I start with my white because I always start mixing with my lighter colors. I'm going to scoop some out of here. I think a good rule of thumb is you need approximately the amount of like a nickel or quarter, no more than that. And again, super light. So I am going to literally add, do you see how much of that black I just added? That was not a lot at all. And I can just get that started mixing. Look at how dark that's becoming already. I may want to tint this with that turquoise. I don't know. I kind of actually really appreciate this clean gray color. So you may mix with this, and you may also mix. Notice how much of that black I used. It was literally just the tip, and it tinted that white that much. Again, why we start off with the, that's why we start with our lightest colors. I can set this here. Now I'm going to mix with my brayer. A lot of kids just go back and forth, but that's not mixing it. You want to go forward, 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 sideways. Please don't cover the whole surface with this. What a waste of ink. We're going to keep it right here in the center now. And by going forward, it just repeats a different pattern on the brayer each time. So we're going to try to just mix this up in here. Beautiful. And I want to see how my inking is. So this is the side I'm going to carve out of, I think, or maybe this one. Let's carve out of this one. All right. So again, ooh, you can see where that black is picking up in there. That it's not really mixed. I'm going to go either forward or backwards. Cover that surface. That's beautiful. There's my first layer. That's my lightest color, and I just hit it with the handle. There we go. Put that aside. Come over here. Here's your practice page. And what you're practicing is setting it down. See how when I dropped it, it just kind of went crooked. So I know when I go to print again, I need to kind of be aware of that. So I'm going to make sure that I am pushing down, straight down on this. If I push this way, the ink is gonna make it slide across the surface. We don't want to do that. We don't want it to slide across the surface. We just want to push it straight down. If you have too much ink on here, it's going to slide no matter what. You can see how the surface is kind of dotted. That's like the perfect amount of ink. Let's see how I did. That's a pretty darn good print right there. That little spot, it's okay. These reduction prints are not perfect. They're not going to be. These are just like erasers. So be gentle with them. I love this. I think that's good. I think I'm ready to go on to my next, to one of my good layers. I'm going to replenish my ink just a smidge because this already in that few seconds has dried out just a smidge. So I'm going to come back in here, wipe this off. I should probably have a paper towel next to me, y'all. I'm going to add this back in here, replenishing just a little bit, put the lid back on. Again, and just a smidge right there. There's my black. Lid back on. Palette knife over there. And you can mix with this, but I think it takes longer, and I think it dries out just a smidge more. See that black dot going all over the place? I mean, you want that to happen. Had we mixed this first, maybe that one huge spot wouldn't have been there. So let's see if we can take this and literally mix that color back. There we go. Smear that. I love a good palette knife. There we are. I'm going to ink this surface again. And I think I'm going to print it on the card this time because I don't want it to I want my card to be perfect because the card is something I'm going to be sending off in the mail to someone. Okay, take a deep breath. I like to put it in one corner first, line it up there, line it up to the other corner, and then down below. There we go. Press firm, straight down. Perfection. There are some dark spots, but my guess is that's going to get covered. I'm going to set this aside. That's my lightest color. Let's see if I can get one more out of this. Do not add water to it. It doesn't work. I know it says water is water-soluble ink, but it doesn't work. So of these three, you're going to turn one in on a frame. So just go ahead and drop it. We're going to cut this out later. We're going to measure around it. So whatever you do, wherever it's placed is A-okay with me. All right, good. Perfect. Set that aside. I need to do two more. Now, if I want to kind of play around with the color right now, I guess I could. Why not, you know? So I'm going to grab a little more white, replenish up here. And let's add, what about a smidgy of turquoise after I add the black? Come back over here, white. Look at my colors are getting mixed. There we go. And let's just, I mean, literally just about as much as we added of that, oh, maybe a little more. Let me wipe it up here first. If I do that, then I can really control how much I take. There we go. Oh, what a pretty color so far. I dig it. So this is part of the fun of printmaking is the actual mixing of the colors. I like it. I am going to take my palette knife again. Come in here, smear that around because we don't want any of those spots in there again. All forward motions or all backwards, sideways, this way, that way. And You can see some of the, oh, look at this green paint from probably a couple years ago. I did not wash this before I started using it. Shame on me. All right. You know what? Let's just do one practice, one card, and 2 of these. Unless you want a series of 3, then go ahead and do 3. I'm just trying to save time. Because that would look cool, having a series of 3 next to each other. All right. We're going to lift that up. Ta-da. Now, if we were in the classroom, I totally forgot to do something on these, and everybody knows what it is because the first thing we should always do on everything is put our names on the back. And that way I can make sure to get these images back to you because your name was on the back. I think I am just going to make one more just for giggles here. And hopefully my ink has not dried out too much and I can still kind of mess around with that first layer because I think that's fun. Look at a little bit, y'all. A little bit goes a long way. I mean, that's a completely different color, not at all what we planned for. I may need to go and get more white. But I got to be careful because I know this turquoise is going to end up in that white. I should, again, have a paper towel next to me so that I can wipe the blade off and then dip a clean palette knife into the white. Put your cover back on immediately so it doesn't start drying out. Oh, well, that's a pretty first layer color, I think. Wipe off the palette knife. The palette knife, it bends, so you can really smear that off. So maybe on the third one, get a little funky with your first layer color. What do you think about that? If you want to do 3, I like it. And this is a really nice, light, frosty, wintry blue. Come back over here, one direction. Sorry, you know how much I love saying that. Okay. Perfect. And drop it. Now the next layer is when I have to worry about getting it exactly over the other layer. All right, pushing straight down. You can see right here, I may have smudged it that way a little bit. So let's pick it up, let's lift it off and see. No, it looks pretty good. Otherwise you'd be able to see, sometimes you'll be able to see like a little shadowy outline. And yeah, it did, it smudged a little bit right there and a little bit over there. It is what it is. So here, I'm experimenting with the color on this one. I dig it. And that is first layer inking. Now I need to go, of course, it's cleanup time, so I'm heading over to the sink. I am washing off all of these, letting them dry until the next day when I'm gonna carve my next layer and ink that and go over all those other layers. All right, email me with questions and we'll do our second layer next.